Hey there, welcome to another soothing journey through the annals of history. Tonight, we're re-delving into the remarkable lives of medieval peasants and how they managed to survive some of the coldest nights imaginable. Before we begin, if you're enjoying these nightly excursions into the past, consider giving this video a gentle tap on the like button and subscribing to our channel. It's always a pleasure to see where our nocturnal explorers are joining us from, so feel free to share your location and local time in the comments below. Now, let's dim the lights, settle into a comfortable position, and allow the soft crackle of our virtual fireplace to transport us back in time. Close your eyes if you wish, and let the warmth of the flames contrast with the chilly medieval nights we're about to explore. Picture yourself in a small, humble dwelling made of mud and sticks. The walls are thin, offering little protection from the biting cold outside. There are no windows to speak of, save for a small opening covered with a piece of animal hide. The concept of central heating is centuries away, and the only warmth comes from the bodies huddled together inside, and perhaps a small, smoky fire if you're fortunate. As we ponder the lives of these medieval peasants, it's important to remember that winter wasn't just a season for them. It was an annual test of endurance and survival. Each year brought with it the same challenges, the same bitter cold, and the same struggle to make it through to spring. Imagine the ingenuity required to survive in such harsh conditions. These resourceful individuals developed various techniques to insulate their homes as best they could. They might stuff the cracks in their walls with moss or straw, creating a rudimentary form of insulation. Every little bit helped when the icy winds howled outside. One of the most effective strategies for staying warm was communal sleeping. Families would huddle together, sharing body heat to ward off the chill. It wasn't uncommon for livestock to be brought inside as well, adding their warmth to the cramped living space. While it might not sound pleasant to our modern sensibilities, it was a matter of survival for these resilient people. The clothing worn by medieval peasants also played a crucial role in their ability to endure the cold. Layers were key, with woolen garments being particularly prized for their insulating properties. Cloaks and hoods provided additional protection against the elements when venturing outside. As we continue our journey through this frigid medieval landscape, let's take a moment to appreciate the stark contrast between their lives and our own. The next time you adjust your thermostat or snuggle under a warm duvet, remember the incredible resilience of those who came before us. The medieval peasant's day didn't end when the sun went down. In fact, the onset of darkness brought with it a whole new set of challenges. With no electricity to light their homes, they relied on the flickering glow of rushlights or simple candles, if they could afford them. So more often than not, the fire in the hearth provided the only illumination, casting long shadows across the cramped interior of their homes. Despite the hardships, there was a sense of community that helped these individuals persevere. Neighbors would often come together to share resources, stories, and warmth. In the depths of winter, this sense of togetherness was often the difference between survival and tragedy. Let's pause for a moment and listen to the gentle crackling of our fireplace. Allow the rhythmic sound to lull you deeper into relaxation as we continue our exploration of medieval life. The peasant's diet during the winter months was often meager and monotonous. Fresh fruits and vegetables were scarce, and they relied heavily on preserved foods. Salted meats, dried fish, and stored grains formed the backbone of their winter sustenance. Root vegetables like turnips and parsnips, which could be stored for long periods, were also staples of the medieval winter diet. Water, surprisingly, could be a luxury during the coldest nights. Streams and wells would freeze, forcing peasants to melt snow or ice for their daily needs. This task alone could consume a significant portion of their day, as they needed water, not just for drinking, but for cooking and caring for their animals as well. Speaking of animals, livestock played a crucial role in the medieval peasants' ability to survive the winter. Cows, pigs, and chickens were not just sources of food, but also of warmth. The body heat generated by these animals could make a noticeable difference in the temperature of a small dwelling. However, keeping the animals alive through the winter was a challenge in itself, requiring careful planning and management of limited food stores. As we delve deeper into the night, let the soft glow of our imaginary fire warm you, much as it would have warmed those resilient souls of the past. Feel the weight of your worries melt away as we continue our journey through history. The medieval peasants' relationship with the natural world was intimate and complex. They were acutely aware of the changing seasons and the signs that heralded the approach of winter. The migration of birds, the changing colors of leaves, and the first frost were all carefully observed and noted. This knowledge was passed down through generations, a vital part of their survival strategy. Despite the hardships, there were moments of joy and celebration even in the depths of winter. The winter solstice, known to many as Yule, was a time of feasting and merrymaking. It was a brief respite from the daily struggle, a chance to come together as a community and find warmth in each other's company. As the night wears on, let your mind drift with the gentle ebb and flow of history. Feel the tension leave your body as you sink deeper into relaxation, surrounded by the comforting sounds of our crackling fire. The medieval peasants' resilience in the face of such challenging conditions is truly remarkable. They not only survived, but managed to build lives, raise families, and create communities. Their legacy lives on in the traditions, folklore, and even in some of the survival skills that have been passed down through the centuries. As we near the end of our journey tonight, take a moment to reflect on the incredible adaptability of the human spirit. From the darkest, coldest nights of medieval Europe to the comfort of your own bed, we've come a long way. Yet the determination and ingenuity that allowed our ancestors to survive continue to drive us forward. Let the gentle crackling of the fire lull you toward sleep. As you drift off, carry with you the warmth of human resilience and the knowledge that, like those medieval peasants, we too can face our challenges with courage and creativity. Thank you for joining me on this cozy exploration of history. Imagine, if you will, a world where your dating profile isn't a carefully curated selection of your best selfies, but rather a list of how many cows your family owns. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where love was less about finding your soulmate and more about securing a decent dowry and avoiding the plague. Our first piece of bizarre dating advice comes from the 12th century. Apparently, if you were a young maiden looking to catch the eye of a dashing knight, you were advised to carry around a piece of lodestone. This magnetic rock was believed to draw your true love to you like a compass points north. Of course, it probably just resulted in a lot of confused women walking around with rocks in their pockets. At least they were getting their steps in. For the gentlemen of the time, wooing a lady was a bit more complicated than swiping right. One popular piece of advice was to prove your devotion by staying awake for 3 days and nights outside your beloved's window. Because nothing says "I love you" quite like sleep deprivation and potential hypothermia. One can only imagine the conversations that ensued. "My love, why do you look so haggard?" "Oh, just proving my undying affection by slowly dying of exhaustion outside your house." But wait, it gets better. If you really wanted to impress your medieval crush, you might try the age-old technique of bloodletting. Yes, you heard that right. Some medieval physicians believed that draining a bit of blood would balance your humors and make you more attractive. Talk about putting your heart on your sleeve, or rather, in a leech-filled bowl. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the soothing crackle of our fireplace. Can you hear it? Let the gentle pops and hisses wash over you, carrying away the stresses of the day. Breathe deeply and let your mind wander back to a time when love potions were all the rage and a well-placed leech could supposedly cure anything from a broken heart to a stubbed toe. Speaking of love potions, they were a big deal in medieval times. But forget about the flowery concoctions you might imagine. These potions often contained some truly bizarre ingredients. One recipe called for the blood of a dove mixed with honey and herbs. Another suggested grinding up the bones of a frog and sprinkling the powder in your beloved's food. Romantic, right? It's a wonder the human race survived at all. For those looking to marry up the social ladder, there was always the option of enlisting the help of a professional matchmaker. These medieval cupids would go around town singing the praises of their clients and trying to arrange suitable matches. Imagine a town crier meets Tinder with a dash of used car salesman thrown in for good measure. Here the eligible bachelor seeks wife, is only slightly poxmarked, owns 2 whole chickens, and hasn't been accused of witchcraft in at least a fortnight. Of course, not all dating advice in medieval times was completely bonkers. Some of it was surprisingly practical, if a bit blunt. For instance, women were advised to avoid men who were too handsome, as they were likely to be unfaithful. Men, on the other hand, were cautioned against marrying women who were too talkative, as it was believed they would be difficult to control. Medieval gender roles, as charming as ever. Let's pause for a moment and listen to the fire again. Feel the warmth of the flames, even if it's just in your imagination. Let the gentle light flicker behind your closed eyelids, soothing away any tension you might be holding on to. Breathe in the imaginary scent of burning wood and let it carry you deeper into our historical reverie. Now, where were we? Yes, medieval dating advice. Did you know that in some parts of Europe, it was considered good luck to be married on a Friday? And this was because Friday was associated with the goddess Venus in Roman mythology. However, this conflicted with Christian traditions, which viewed Friday as an unlucky day due to its association with the crucifixion. Talk about mixed messages. For those who managed to navigate the treacherous waters of medieval courtship and actually get married, the advice didn't stop there. Newlyweds were often given some rather interesting guidance on how to ensure a happy and fruitful union. One popular piece of advice was to eat specific foods on your wedding night to increase fertility. Oysters, unsurprisingly, made the list. But so did turnips, apparently. Nothing says, let's start a family, quite like a romantic turnip dinner. Another gem of marital advice was the belief that the position of the bed could influence the gender of future children. If you wanted a boy, you were supposed to place the bed so that the man slept on the right side. For a girl, the left side was the way to go. One can only imagine the midnight bed shuffling that must have occurred in medieval bedrooms. As we near the end of our journey through the bizarre world of medieval dating advice, let's take one last moment to appreciate the soothing ambience of our virtual fireplace. Let the gentle crackling lull you into a state of deep relaxation. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed or chair, all the tensions of the day melting away like snow in spring. In the end, perhaps the most sensible piece of medieval dating advice came from the 14th century poet Geoffrey Chaucer, who wrote, "Love is blind." In a world of love potions, magical rocks, and strategic bed placement, maybe that was the best approach after all. To close your eyes to the oddities and superstitions and simply follow your heart. As we drift off to sleep, let's be grateful that our modern dating woes, while still challenging, don't involve quite so many leeches or turnips. Unless, of course, that's your thing. No judgment here. Now, let's settle in and transport ourselves back to the age of Vikings, where the line between life and death was as thin as the veil between our world and theirs. Picture this. You're standing on a windswept shore, salty air filling your lungs as you watch a long ship being prepared for its final voyage. This isn't just any ship. It's a vessel destined to carry a fallen warrior to the halls of Valhalla. Viking funerals were more than just a way to dispose of the dead. They were elaborate ceremonies steeped in symbolism and tradition. The process began long before the actual funeral, with the body of the deceased being carefully prepared. Loved ones would wash and dress the body in fine clothes, often adorning it with jewelry and other precious items. This wasn't just about vanity. The Vikings believed that the dead would need these possessions in the afterlife. But here's where things get really interesting. Contrary to popular belief, not all Vikings were sent off in burning ships. In fact, this practice was reserved for the most elite members of society, chieftains, kings, and other high-ranking individuals. For the average Viking, burial practices varied widely depending on the region and the individual status. Some Vikings were buried in traditional grave mounds, while others were cremated and their ashes scattered. In some cases, the dead were buried with their ships on land, creating impressive boat-shaped burial mounds that could still be seen in parts of Scandinavia today. These earthen monuments stand as silent testaments to the Viking belief in the importance of sea travel, even in death. For those lucky few who did receive a ship burial, the process was truly spectacular. The chosen vessel would be pulled ashore and placed on a funeral pyre. The body of the deceased, along with various grave goods, would be carefully arranged on board. These items could include weapons, tools, food, drink, even sacrificed animals, all intended to serve the dead in the afterlife. As the flames began to lick at the ship's hull, mourners would gather to pay their respects. They might share stories of the deceased's bravery in battle or recount tales of their generosity and wisdom. The air would be filled with the sound of chanting and the mournful notes of lures, long, key, bronze horns that produced a haunting melody. But the funeral wasn't just about saying goodbye. For the Vikings, it was also a celebration of life in a way to ensure the deceased's safe passage to the afterlife. They believed that the smoke from the burning ship would carry the dead person's soul to Valhalla, where they would feast and fight alongside the gods for eternity. As we drift deeper into our exploration of Viking funeral rites, let's pause for a moment to consider the significance of these elaborate ceremonies. In a world where life was often harsh and unpredictable, these rituals provided a sense of continuity and purpose. They allowed the living to honor their dead and maintain a connection with their ancestors. Now, imagine you're a Viking child, watching as your grandfather's ship is set ablaze. The flames dance against the darkening sky, casting long shadows across the beach. You can feel the heat on your face, smell the smoke in the air. It's a moment of both sadness and awe, a reminder of the cycle of life and death that governs all things. As the ship burns, you might notice small objects being tossed into the flames by mourners. These could be personal items, tokens of remembrance, or gifts for the deceased to take with them on their journey. It's a final act of love and respect, a way of ensuring that the dead are well equipped for whatever adventures await them in the afterlife. But not all Viking funerals were grand affairs with burning ships. For many, the process was much simpler. A body might be buried in a shallow grave, accompanied by a few cherished possessions. In some cases, bodies were cremated on land, with the ashes then buried or scattered. Interestingly, the Vikings also practiced something called double burial. This involved burying the body temporarily, allowing the flesh to decompose, and then later exhuming the bones for a second, more permanent burial. This practice may have been linked to beliefs about the soul's journey after death, or it could have been a practical solution for transporting bodies over long distances. As we continue our journey through Viking funeral practices, let's take a moment to consider the role of women in these ceremonies. While Viking society was largely patriarchal, women played important roles in funeral rites. They were often responsible for preparing the body and may have led certain aspects of the ceremony. In some cases, female slaves or servants were sacrificed to accompany their masters in death. While this practice may seem barbaric to us today, it was rooted in the belief that the dead would need servants in the afterlife. It's a stark reminder of the complex and often brutal nature of Viking society. Now, as we feel ourselves drifting closer to sleep, let's turn our attention to the artifacts left behind by these ancient funeral practices. Archaeologists have uncovered numerous Viking burial sites, providing us with valuable insights into their beliefs and customs. One of the most famous discoveries is the Oseberg ship burial in Norway. Tanned, in 1904. This remarkably well-preserved ship contained the remains of 2 women, along with a wealth of grave goods. These included intricately carved wooden objects, textiles, and even the remains of horses and dogs. Another fascinating find is the Sutton Hoo burial in England. While not strictly Viking, this Anglo-Saxon ship burial shows clear Norse influences and gives us a glimpse into the funeral practices of early medieval elites. As our eyelids grow heavy and our thoughts begin to slow, let's reflect on the legacy of these Viking funeral rites. They speak to a culture that valued bravery, honored their dead, and believed in a rich and complex afterlife. In many ways, these ancient practices continue to captivate our imaginations, inspiring countless books, films, and works of art. The crackling of the fire beside us echoes the funeral pyres of long ago, reminding us of the eternal cycle of life and death. As we drift off to sleep, we might imagine ourselves standing on that windswept shore, watching as a long ship disappears into the mist, carrying its precious cargo to the halls of the gods. And so, as our journey through Viking funeral rites comes to an end, we find ourselves back in the present, cozy and warm in our beds. The gentle sound of the fire continues to soothe us, its soft light flickering behind our closed eyelids. As we slip into dreams, we carry with us the echoes of ancient chants and the memory of burning ships sailing into eternity. Remember, whether you're drifting off to sleep or simply enjoying a moment of calm, these stories from history remind us of our shared human experience. They connect us to those who came before, their hopes, fears, and beliefs not so different from our own. So, as you settle in for the night, let the gentle crackling of the fire and the whispers of history guide you towards peaceful slumber, and who knows, perhaps in your dreams, you'll find yourself standing on the shores of a Viking fjord, watching as a long ship sets sail for Valhalla. Now, let's ease into tonight's tale, a story of loyalty, honor, decay, and the tumultuous times that gave birth to the Shinsengumi. Picture yourself in Kyoto, Japan. In the early 1860s, the air is thick with tension and change is on the horizon. The Tokugawa shogunate, which had ruled Japan for over 2 centuries, is beginning to crumble. In this atmosphere of uncertainty, a group of skilled swordsmen would rise to prominence, their blue Haori coats becoming a symbol of both fear and respect on the streets of the imperial capital. The Shinsengumi, which translates to newly selected corps, was formed in 1863. But to understand their creation, we need to step back a bit further in time. Japan had been isolated from the outside world for over 200 years, a policy known as Sakoku. Its isolation was coming to an end, forcibly opened by the arrival of American ships led by Commodore Matthew Perry in 1853. The shogunate's inability to repel these foreign barbarians sent shockwaves through Japanese society. In the wake of this turmoil, various factions began to emerge. Some supported the shogunate, while others rallied behind the idea of restoring the emperor to power. It was in this climate of political upheaval that the seeds of the Shinsengumi were sown. Originally, they were known as the Roshigumi, a group of ronin recruited to protect the shogun during his journey from Edo to Kyoto. However, the leader of the Roshigumi, Kiyokawa Hachiro, had other plans. He intended to use the group to support the imperial cause, effectively betraying the shogunate. When this plot was discovered, a small faction led by Kondo Isami, Hijikata Toshizo, and Serisawa Kamo decided to remain loyal to the shogun. These men would form the core of what would become the Shinsengumi. The Shinsengumi was officially established in 1863. It's tasked with keeping the peace in Kyoto and protecting the shogunate's interests. They quickly gained a reputation for their strict code of conduct and their ruthless efficiency in dealing with threats to public order. Their distinctive uniform, featuring the light blue Haori coat, became a recognizable and often feared sight on the streets of Kyoto. Under the leadership of Kondo Isami as the commander and Hijikata Toshizo as the vice commander, the Shinsengumi grew in both size and influence. Hijikata, in particular, became known as the Demon Vice Commander due to his strict enforcement of the group's code of conduct. This code, known as the Kyokat-kato, was a set of regulations that all members were required to follow under pain of death. The Shinsengumi's rise to prominence wasn't without its challenges. Internal power struggles threatened to tear the group apart in its early days. The most significant of these was the conflict with Kalita Serizawa Kamo, whose erratic and violent behavior was becoming a liability. In what would become one of the most infamous episodes in Shinsengumi history, Serizawa was assassinated by his own comrades, including Hijikata and another key member, Okita Saji. As we delve deeper into the story of the Shinsengumi, you might find your eyelids growing heavy. That's perfectly alright. The soft crackle of the fire and the gentle rhythm of the words guide you towards a peaceful slumber. Remember, there's no need to stay awake for the entire tale. Your subconscious mind will continue to absorb the soothing sounds and stories, even as you drift off to sleep. The Shinsengumi's reputation grew rapidly, attracting both admiration and fear. They became known for their skilled swordsmanship and their unwavering loyalty to the shogunate. However, this loyalty would ultimately lead to their downfall. As the tide of Japanese politics turned increasingly against the shogunate, the Shinsengumi found themselves fighting a losing battle. One of the most famous incidents involving the Shinsengumi occurred in 1864, known as the Ikadaya Incident. Acting on intelligence about a plot to burn down Kyoto and kidnap the emperor, the Shinsengumi raided the Ikadaya Inn in the ensuing battle. They successfully foiled the plan and captured several key conspirators. This event cemented their reputation as formidable protectors of Kyoto and defenders of the shogunate. However, the winds of change were blowing strongly against the old order. The emperor's supporters, known as the Ishinchichi, were gaining ground. Major domains like Satsuma and Shire, once bitter enemies, had formed an alliance against the shogunate. The Shinsengumi found themselves increasingly isolated as more and more people turned against the Tokugawa regime. As you listen to this tale of loyalty in changing times, allow yourself to sink deeper into relaxation. Feel the warmth of the virtual fire. Imagine the soft glow it casts on the walls around you. Let the gentle rise and fall of the words lull you into a state of tranquil calm. There's no need to analyze or memorize. Simply let the story wash over you like a soothing wave. The final years of the Shinsengumi were marked by tragedy and heroic last stands. As the Boshin War broke out in 1868, marking the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, the Shinsengumi fought valiantly for a cause that was already lost. They participated in several major battles, including the Battle of Toba-Fushimi, where they suffered heavy losses. Throughout 1868, the Shinsengumi retreated north, fighting rearguard actions against the advancing imperial forces. Their numbers dwindled, and their leaders fell one by one. Kondo Uesami was captured and executed. Chichiso, the last leader of the Shinsengumi, made a final stand at the Battle of Akadate in 1869, where he was killed in action. The fall of the Shinsengumi marked the end of an era in Japanese history. With the Meiji Restoration, Japan would embark on a rapid modernization process, leaving behind many of the old samurai traditions. However, the legacy of the Shinsengumi lived on in Japanese popular culture, where they are often romanticized as the last true samurai, loyal to the end. As our tale of the Shinsengumi comes to a close, you may find yourself drifting on the edge of sleep. That's perfectly fine. Let the remaining words and the soft crackle of the fire guide you gently into your dreams. The story of these brave warriors, their triumphs and tragedies, their unwavering loyalty in the face of change will continue to echo in your subconscious. Remember, there's no need to fight sleep. Allow yourself to be carried away on the gentle current of history. As you drift off, imagine the streets of old Kyoto, the flash of swords in the moonlight, the swirl of blue hari coats in the wind. Let these images blend and fade, becoming the stuff of dreams. Thank you for joining me on this historical journey. Whether you're still awake or have already succumbed to sleep, know that these stories will continue to play in the theater of your mind, providing a soothing backdrop for your rest. Now, let's ease into tonight's tale, allowing the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace to transport you to ancient Japan. Close your eyes and imagine the narrow, winding streets of Kyoto, a city steeped in history and tradition. As the soft glow of lanterns casts long shadows on the wooden buildings, we'll explore the world of the Shinsengumi, an elite group of samurai who served as a special police force in the twilight years of the Tokugawa shogunate. In the mid-19th century, Japan was a nation on the brink of change. The long-standing feudal system was beginning to crumble, and foreign powers were knocking at the country's doors, demanding trade and diplomatic relations. Amidst this turmoil, the city of Kyoto, then the imperial capital, became a hotbed of political intrigue and social unrest. It was in this volatile atmosphere that the Shinsengumi was born. The Shinsengumi, which translates to newly selected corps, was formed in 1863 by the Aizu domain, loyal supporters of the shogunate. Their primary mission was to maintain order in Kyoto and protect the shogun's interests against a growing tide of imperial loyalists who sought to restore power to the emperor. But who were these men, and what set them apart from the other samurai of their time? Picture, if you will, a group of skilled swordsmen, clad in their distinctive light blue hari jackets, emblazoned with the white mountain stripes pattern. These were no ordinary policemen. Many of the Shinsengumi's members came from humble backgrounds, a stark contrast to the hereditary samurai class that dominated Japanese society. This unique composition gave the group a fierce determination and loyalty that would become legendary. As you drift closer to sleep, let's explore the daily life of a Shinsengumi member. Their headquarters, located in various temples throughout Kyoto, served as both barracks and training grounds. Here, they honed their skills in swordsmanship, practiced strict discipline, and prepared for their nightly patrols. The sound of wooden swords clashing in practice bouts might have echoed through the temple grounds, a rhythmic backdrop to the bustling city beyond. The Shinsengumi operated under a strict code of conduct known as the Kyoka. This code demanded absolute loyalty to the group and the shogunate, forbade private fights, and prohibited members from leaving the Shinsengumi without permission. The punishment for violating these rules was often severe, sometimes even resulting in seppuku, ritual suicide. This uncompromising adherence to their code earned the Shinsengumi a fearsome reputation among both allies and enemies. As night fell over Kyoto, the Shinsengumi would begin their patrols. Imagine the soft footsteps of these warriors as they moved through the darkened streets, their swords at the ready. Their presence alone was often enough to deter trouble. But when conflict arose, they were known for their swift and decisive action. The clash of steel on steel might occasionally pierce the night air, a brief disturbance in the otherwise peaceful city. One of the most famous incidents involving the Shinsengumi occurred on a summer night in 1864, known as the Ikadaya incident. It saw the group successfully foil a plot by imperial loyalists to burn down Kyoto and kidnap the emperor. The Shinsengumi's quick action and combat prowess during this event cemented their reputation as formidable protectors of the shogunate's interests. As you feel yourself drifting deeper into relaxation, let's turn our attention to some of the key figures within the Shinsengumi. The group was led by Kondo Isami, a skilled swordsman who rose from humble origins to become a respected leader. The Sekudinka, Mond Hijakata Toshizo, was known as the Demon Vice Commander for his strict enforcement of the group's code and his fearsome swordsmanship. Another notable member was Okita Suji, a prodigy who joined the group at a young age and quickly became one of its most skilled fighters. Despite his fearsome reputation in battle, Okita was known for his cheerful demeanor and kind heart. These complex personalities added depth to the Shinsengumi story, making them more than just a faceless police force. As the years passed, the political landscape of Japan continued to shift. The Shinsengumi found themselves fighting a losing battle against the tide of history. In 1867, the last shogun, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, resigned his position, effectively ending the Tokugawa shogunate's 260-year rule. The Shinsengumi, loyal to the end, continued to fight for the shogunate's cause in the ensuing Boshin War. The final days of the Shinsengumi were marked by tragedy and heroism. Many of its leaders, including Kondo Isame, were captured and executed. Others, like Hajikata Toshizo, fought on until the bitter end, making their last stand in Hokkaido. As you listen to the gentle crackle of the fire, imagine the bittersweet emotions of these warriors as they faced the end of an era, their unwavering loyalty carrying them through their final battles. Though the Shinsengumi's time was short, lasting only about 5 years, their impact on Japanese history and popular culture has been enduring. Their story has been retold countless times in books, films, anime, and manga, often romanticizing their loyalty and tragic fate. The image of the noble samurai fighting for a doomed cause continues to captivate audiences around the world. As our tale draws to a close, let the soft sounds of the fireplace lull you further into tranquility. Reflect on the dedication and honor embodied by the Shinsengumi, even as you feel the weight of sleep gently pressing upon you. Their story, like many in history, reminds us of the complexities of human nature, the capacity for both great loyalty and fierce determination, even in the face of insurmountable odds. In the centuries since the Shinsengumi patrolled the streets of Kyoto, Japan has undergone tremendous changes. The feudal system gave way to modernization, and the country emerged as a global economic power. Yet, in the narrow alleys and historic districts of Kyoto, one can still feel echoes of the past. Perhaps in a soft whisper of wind through ancient temples, or the distant sound of a sword being sheathed. The spirit of the Shinsengumi lives on. As you drift off to sleep, imagine yourself walking through the peaceful streets of modern-day Kyoto. The city's rich history surrounds you, testament to the many stories and lives that have shaped this place over the centuries. Let the gentle rhythm of your breath mirror the timeless flow of the nearby Kamo River, carrying you deeper into restful slumber. Remember, as you close your eyes and let sleep embrace you, that history is full of tales waiting to be discovered. From the elite samurai police force of Kyoto to countless other stories from around the world, there's always more to learn and explore. But for now, rest easy, knowing that tomorrow brings new opportunities for discovery and wonder. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. Your dreams be peaceful and your sleep restorative. Good night and sleep well. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the fascinating world of ancient history, exploring some of the most intriguing figures and cultures that have shaped our past. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always amazing to see our global community coming together. Now, dim the lights, maybe light a candle or two, and let's ease into tonight's journey through time. We're starting with the remarkable Neanderthals, those ancient relatives of ours who were absolute freaks of nature in the best possible way. Picture this. You're living in Ice Age Europe, surrounded by harsh, unforgiving landscapes, but you're not just surviving, you're thriving. That's the story of the Neanderthals. These incredible beings were built for the cold, with stocky bodies and large nasal cavities that helped warm the air before it reached their lungs. Their barrel-shaped chests and shorter limbs weren't just for show. They were perfectly adapted to conserve heat in the frigid climates they called home. But it wasn't just their physical attributes that made Neanderthals remarkable. Recent studies have shown that they were far more sophisticated than we once thought. They created art, fashioned jewelry, and even buried their dead with care and ceremony. Imagine the creativity and emotional depth required to paint on cave walls or craft delicate beads from shells. These weren't the brutish cavemen of old cartoons. They were complex beings with rich inner lives. Perhaps most impressively, Neanderthals were master hunters and tool makers. They crafted spears and other weapons with precision, using them to take down large prey like woolly mammoths and rhinos. The strength and skill required for such feats is almost beyond our modern comprehension. Next time you struggle to open a jar, just remember, you've got Neanderthal DNA in you somewhere. As we move forward in time, let's turn our attention to another remarkable figure, Tamo Gozen, a legendary female samurai who lived in the late 12th century CE in a world dominated by men. Tamo stood out not just for her gender, but for her exceptional skill in battle. Imagine the scene. It's the height of the Genpei War, a conflict that would shape the future of Japan. Amidst the chaos of clashing swords and thundering hooves, one warrior stands out. Her long black hair flows behind her as she rides, her armor gleaming in the sun. This is Tamo Gozen, described in historical accounts as beautiful and strong, with skin as fair as snow. But don't let her beauty fool you. Tamo was a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. She was an expert archer, capable of shooting with deadly accuracy from horseback. Her skill with the sword was unmatched, and she could wrestle down the strongest of men. In one famous battle, she is said to have taken the heads of 7 enemy samurai before calmly rejoining her lord. Tamo's loyalty to her master, Minamoto no Yoshinaka, was unwavering. She fought by his side in countless battles, often leading his armies into the fray. Her bravery and skill earned her a place of honor in Japanese history and literature, inspiring generations of women to come. As we drift further back in time, let's explore the fascinating world of ancient maritime cultures. Long before the age of GPS and sonar, brave souls ventured out onto the vast, unpredictable oceans, armed with nothing but their wits and the stars to guide them. Picture yourself on a Polynesian voyaging canoe, sailing across the endless blue of the Pacific. The air is thick with salt spray, and the only sounds are the creaking of wood and the slap of waves against the hull. These incredible seafarers used their deep understanding of ocean currents, wind patterns, celestial navigation to explore and settle islands across thousands of miles of open ocean. Or imagine being part of an ancient Phoenician trading expedition, your ship laden with precious purple dye and fine cedar wood. The Mediterranean was your highway, connecting distant lands and cultures. Phoenicians were master shipbuilders and sailors, their skills allowing them to establish a vast trading network that stretched from modern-day Lebanon to the Atlantic coast of Spain. In the frigid waters of the North Atlantic, Viking longships cut through the waves, their dragon-headed prows striking fear into the hearts of coastal dwellers. These versatile vessels could navigate both open seas and shallow rivers, allowing the Norse to explore, trade, and raid across vast distances. The Vikings' maritime prowess led them to discover new lands, including Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, centuries before Columbus. These ancient mariners didn't just sail, they carried with them entire cultures, spreading languages, technologies, and ideas across vast distances. Their legacy lives on in the diverse coastal cultures we see around the world today. Now, let's turn our attention to a different aspect of ancient life: royal education. In many ancient cultures, the education of future rulers was seen as crucial to the stability and prosperity of the kingdom. In ancient Egypt, young pharaohs to be were trained in a wide range of subjects, from religious rituals to military strategy. They learned to read and write in hieroglyphs, studied astronomy and mathematics, and were taught the art of diplomacy. Physical education was also important, with future rulers learning to hunt, ride chariots, and wield weapons. Across the world in ancient China, imperial princes underwent rigorous training in the 6 arts: rites, music, archery, charioteering, calligraphy, and mathematics. These were seen as the essential skills for a well-rounded ruler. Confucian philosophy played a major role in their education, emphasizing moral cultivation and the importance of ruling with virtue. In medieval Europe, young nobles were often sent to other courts as pages, where they would learn etiquette, languages, and the arts of war. As they grew older, they would become squires, training in horsemanship and combat alongside experienced knights. This system not only provided education, but also helped forge important political alliances between royal houses. The Aztec nobility in Mesoamerica sent their children to special schools called Comacac, where they studied history, religion, law, and astronomy. These schools were incredibly demanding, with harsh discipline and high expectations. The goal was to produce leaders who were not only knowledgeable, but also physically and mentally tough. As we wind down our journey through history, let the gentle crackle of the fireplace soothe your mind. Imagine the warmth of the flames, casting a soft glow across the room. The stories we've explored tonight, of Neanderthal ingenuity, samurai bravery, ancient seafaring adventures, and royal education, are just a small part of the rich tapestry of human history. As you drift off to sleep, picture yourself walking through the halls of time. Perhaps you're sharing a meal with the Neanderthal family, marveling at their strength and adaptability. Or maybe you're standing on the deck of a Phoenician ship, feeling the salt spray on your face as you sail towards unknown horizons. You might find yourself in a medieval castle, watching young princes and princesses learn the arts of governance and warfare. Let these images and stories swirl gently in your mind, a soothing reminder of the incredible journey of humanity. As your thoughts slow and your body relaxes, know that you're part of this grand narrative, a link in the long chain of human history. Let the soft sounds of the fire and the whispers of the past guide you into a peaceful, restful sleep.